The Roman Curia is the administrative apparatus of the Holy See and the central body through which the Roman Pontiff conducts the affairs of the Universal Catholic Church. It acts in his name and with his authority for the good and for the service of the particular churches, and provides the necessary central organization for the correct functioning of the Church and the achievement of its goals. In exercising supreme, full, and immediate power in the Universal Church, the Roman Pontiff makes use of the departments of the Roman Curia, which, therefore, perform their duties in his name and with his authority for the good of the churches and in the service of the sacred pastors. Decree concerning the pastoral office of bishops in the Church. Christus Dominus. The structure and organization of responsibilities within the Curia is at present regulated by the Apostolic Constitution Pastor Bonus issued by Pope John Paul II on 28 June 1988, which Pope Francis has decided to revise. Historical background. Curia in medieval and later Latin usage means court, in the sense of royal court, rather than court of law. The Roman Curia, then, sometimes anglicized as the Court of Rome, as in the 1534 Act of Parliament that forbade appeals to it from England, is the papal court, and assists the Pope in carrying out his functions. The Roman Curia can be loosely compared to cabinets in governments of countries with a Western form of governance, but only the second section of the Secretariat of State, known also as the Section for Relations with States, the Pontifical Commission for Vatican City-State and the Congregation for Catholic Education, can be directly compared with specific ministries of a civil government. It is normal for every Latin Catholic diocese to have its own curia for its administration. For the Diocese of Rome, these functions are not handled by the Roman Curia, but by the Vicariate General of His Holiness for the City of Rome, as provided by the Apostolic Constitution Ecclesia in Urb. The Vicar General of Rome, traditionally a cardinal, and his deputy the vicegerent, who holds the personal title of Archbishop, supervise the governance of the diocese by reference to the Pope himself, but with no more dependence on the Roman Curia, as such, than other Catholic dioceses throughout the world. A distinct office, the Vicar General for Vatican City, administers the portion of the Diocese of Rome in Vatican City. Until recently, there still existed hereditary officers of the Roman Curia, holding titles denominating functions that had ceased to be a reality when the Papal States were lost to the papacy. A reorganization, ordered by Pope Pius X, was incorporated into the 1917 Code of Canon Law. Further steps toward reorganization were begun by Pope Paul VI in the 1960s. Among the goals of this curial reform were the modernization of procedures and the internationalization of the curial staff. These reforms are reflected in the 1983 Code of Canon Law. The offices of the Vatican City-State are not part of the Roman Curia, which is composed only of offices of the Holy See. The following organs or charges, according to the official website of the Holy See, comprise the Curia. It should be noted that all members of the Curia except the Cardinal Camerlengo and the Major Penitentiary resign their office immediately after a papal death or resignation. See said a vacant. The Secretariats. Secretariat of State. The Secretariat of State is the oldest dicastery in the Roman Curia, the government of the Roman Catholic Church. It is headed by the Secretary of State, since 15 October 2013 Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who is responsible for all the political and diplomatic functions of the Holy See. The Secretariat is divided into two sections, the Section for General Affairs and the Section for Relations with States, known as the First Section and Second Section, respectively. The Secretariat of State was created in the 15th century and is now the dicastery most involved in coordinating the Holy See's activities. Secretariat for the Economy. The Secretariat for the Economy was established by Pope Francis in 2014, with the Australian Cardinal George Pell, formerly the Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Sydney in Sydney, Australia, as its Cardinal Prefect. Secretariat for Communications. On Saturday, June 27, 2015, Pope Francis established the Secretariat for Communications. It will incorporate under one governing body the following: the Pontifical Council for Social Communications, the Press Office of the Holy See, the Vatican Internet Service, Vatican Radio, Vatican Television Center, the L'Osservatore Romano newspaper, Tipografia Vaticana, Servizio Fotografico, and the Libreria Editrice Vaticana. The prefect of the Secretariat will be the Reverend Monsignor Dario Eduardo Vigano, formerly the director of the Vatican Television Center. The congregations. The Roman congregations are a type of dicastery of the Roman Curia, the central administrative organism of the Catholic Church. Each congregation is led by a prefect, who is a cardinal. Until recently, a non-cardinal appointed to head a congregation was styled as pro-prefect until he was made cardinal in a consistory. This practice has recently been abandoned. The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. The Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, previously known as the Supreme Sacred Congregation of the Roman and Universal Inquisition, and sometimes simply called the Holy Office, is the oldest of the 9 congregations of the Roman Curia. Among the most active of these major curial departments, it oversees Catholic doctrine. The CDF is the modern name for what used to be the Holy Office of the Inquisition. The current prefect is Cardinal Gerhard Ludwig Müller. The Congregation for the Oriental Churches. The Congregation for the Oriental Churches is the congregation of the Roman Curia responsible for contact with the Eastern Catholic Churches for the sake of assisting their development, protecting their rights, and also maintaining whole and entire in the one Catholic Church, alongside the liturgical, disciplinary and spiritual patrimony of the Latin Church, the heritage of the various Oriental Christian traditions. It has exclusive authority over the following regions: Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula, Eritrea and northern Ethiopia, southern Albania and Bulgaria, Cyprus, Greece, Israel, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, the Palestinian territories, Syria, Jordan, Turkey, and Ukraine. The Congregation for the Oriental Churches has its origins in the Congregatio de Propaganda Fide Pro Negocias Ritus Orientalis, founded by Pope Pius IX on 6 January 1862. Included in the congregation's membership are all Eastern Catholic patriarchs and major archbishops, as well as the president of the Pontifical Council for Promoting Christian Unity. It was formally set up by Pope Benedict XV on 1 May 1917. The title of prefect was held by the popes from 1917 until 1967, with the head of the congregation titled as secretary, currently headed by its prefect, Cardinal Leonardo Sandri. The Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments. The Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments is the congregation of the Roman Curia that handles most affairs relating to liturgical practices of the Latin Catholic Church as distinct from the Eastern Catholic Churches, and also some technical matters relating to the sacraments. It is headed by Cardinal Robert Serra as prefect. It is the direct successor of the Sacred Congregation for the Discipline of the Sacraments. The Congregation for the Causes of Saints. The Congregation for the Causes of Saints is the congregation of the Roman Curia which oversees the complex process which leads to the canonization of saints, passing through the steps of a declaration of heroic virtues and beatification. After preparing a case, including the approval of miracles, the case is presented to the Pope, who decides whether or not to proceed with beatification or canonization. The predecessor of the congregation was the Sacred Congregation for Rites, founded by Pope Sixtus V on the 22nd of January 1588 in the Bulla Mensa Aeterna Dei. The congregation dealt both with regulating divine worship and the causes of saints. On 8 May 1969, Pope Paul VI issued the Apostolic Constitution Sacra Rituum Congregatia, dividing it into 2 congregations: the Congregation for the Divine Worship and one for the Causes of Saints. The latter was given three offices, those of the judiciary, the promoter general of the faith and the historical juridical. With the changes in the canonization process introduced by Pope John Paul II in 1983, a college of relators was added to prepare the cases of those declared as servants of God. This office is vacant due to the resignation of Benedict XVI. The Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. The Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples is the congregation of the Roman Curia, responsible for missionary work and related activities. It is perhaps better known by its former title, the Sacred Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith. Renamed by Pope John Paul II in 1982, its mission continues unbroken. Senior Lucia Primoli, Superior General of the Combonian Missionary Sisters, was appointed a member of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in 2014, thus becoming the first woman to be appointed a member of a Vatican congregation. The Congregation for the Clergy. The Congregation for the Clergy is the congregation of the Roman Curia responsible for overseeing matters regarding priests and deacons not belonging to institutes of consecrated life or societies of apostolic life, as well as for the seminaries and houses of formation of religious and secular institutes. The Congregation for the Clergy handles requests for dispensation from active priestly ministry, as well as the legislation governing presbyteral councils and other organizations of priests around the world. The congregation does not deal with clerical sexual abuse cases, as those are handled exclusively by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. The Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life. The Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life is the congregation of the Roman Curia responsible for everything which concerns institutes of consecrated life and societies of apostolic life, both of men and of women, regarding their government, discipline, studies, goods, rights, and privileges. The Congregation for Catholic Education. The Congregation for Catholic Education or Congregatio de Institutione Catholica is the pontifical congregation of the Roman Curia responsible for universities, faculties, institutes and Catholic institutions of higher education, either 1. Ecclesiastical, which are governed by the Apostolic Constitution Sapientia Christiana and which are tasked to explore more profoundly the various areas of the sacred disciplines, e.g., theology, ecclesiastical philosophy, canon law, so that day by day a deeper understanding of sacred revelation will be developed, or 2. Non-ecclesiastical, dependent on ecclesiastical persons, which are governed by the Apostolic Constitution Ex Cordura Ecclesia, as well as by the existing pertinent civil laws of countries in which they are collocated, and schools and educational institutes depending on ecclesiastical authorities. The Congregation for Bishops. The Congregation for Bishops is the congregation of the Roman Curia which oversees the selection of new bishops that are not in mission territories or those areas that come under the jurisdiction of the Congregation for the Oriental Churches who deal with the Eastern Catholics. Pending papal approval, it consequently holds considerable sway over the evolution of the Church. It also schedules the papal audiences required quinquennially for bishops and arranges the creation of new dioceses. This office is headed by Cardinal Marco Ole, PSS. The Tribunals. There are 3 tribunals of the Curia: the Sacred Apostolic Penitentiaria, the Sacred Roman Rota, and the Apostolic Signatura. The Apostolic Penitentiary. The Apostolic Penitentiary, more formally the Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Penitentiary, is one of the 3 tribunals of the Roman Curia. The Apostolic Penitentiary is chiefly a tribunal of mercy, responsible for issues relating to forgiveness of sins in the Roman Catholic Church. The Apostolic Penitentiary has jurisdiction only over matters in the internal forum. Its work falls mainly into these categories: the absolution of excommunications, latter sententia reserved to the Holy See, the dispensation of sacramental impediments reserved to the Holy See, and the issuance and governance of indulgences. The Tribunal of the Rota Romana. The Tribunal of the Roman Rota is the highest appellate tribunal, while usually trying cases in appeal in third instance, or even in second instance if appeal is made to it directly from the sentence of a tribunal of first instance. It is also a court of first instance for cases specified in the law and for others committed to the Rota by the Roman Pontiff. It fosters the unity of jurisprudence and, through its own sentences, is a help to lower tribunals. The greater part of its decisions concern the nullity of marriage. In such cases its competence includes marriages between two Catholics, between a Catholic and non-Catholic, and between two non-Catholic parties whether one or both of the baptized parties belongs to the Latin or an Eastern Rite. The court is named Rota because the judges, called auditors, originally met in a round room to hear cases. The Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Signatura. The Supreme Tribunal of the Apostolic Signatura is the highest judicial authority in the Catholic Church besides the Pope himself, who is the supreme ecclesiastical judge. In addition, it is an administrative office for matters pertaining to the judicial activity of the whole Church. Appeals in standard judicial processes, if appeal to the Apostolic See, normally are not handled by the Signatura. Those go to the Roman Rota, which is the ordinary appellate tribunal of the Apostolic See. The Supreme Tribunal handles some of the more specialized kinds of cases, including the following: petitions for a declaration of nullity against a rotal decision, conflicts of jurisdiction between two or more tribunals or dicasteries, recourse against administrative acts of ordinaries and dicasteries. Although a rotal decision can be appealed, if not res judicata, to a different panel of the Rota, there is no right of appeal from a decision of the Signatura, although a complaint of nullity on formal grounds is possible. As an administrative office, it exercises jurisdiction over all the tribunals of the Catholic Church. It can also extend the jurisdiction of tribunals, grant dispensations for procedural laws, establish interdiocesan tribunals, and correct advocates.